Aurora, what are you doing here?
I think I finally shook off Cabral.
You should. What do you mean?
I was tired of doing Platinum Division.
Yeah, didn't like it.
Yeah, no, didn't like it. It was just people in there way too good.
Well, we've got some room here in the Diamond Division. You want to hop on?
Yeah, I could do with taking a break from running for a moment.
And then that'll be where it cuts, presumably,
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Cabral.
in a meta
You're
way.
great at editing.
Welcome back, everybody, to Week 6 of the Diamond Division recap. As always, I am your host, Spood, coach of the Southtown Sandslashers, and mixing it up this week, joining me for the first time, this season anyway.
It's Aurora, coach of the Huntsman
Whoa.
Counter.
Whoa.
I always keep saying coach. I don't know why.
That's it means something different than it's...
It's not even like in Dutch you pronounce coach differently. Most because the Dutch for coach is coach.
That's funny. Well, hey, we're happy to have you. Kenneth could not make it this week. May or may not be able to make it next week. But we've got Aurora back. It's a beautiful, wonderful thing. We've been partying this whole time, kind of without you, and it made me feel bad. I should. Funny how that works out. Yeah, we basically we used to do the recaps together every week last season because we were in the same division. There were only the two. And things changed so much. You're now so far away from me.
Yeah, I did have to move far and away, and then, Cabral moved in, and I decided to do things with Cabral for a while.
That's true. But hey, we're happy to have you back. Diamond Division is very interesting this week. Actually, really, really interesting this week. Diamond, honestly, compared to Platinum and Pearl, it feels like the storylines have been a smidge flat. You had some interesting stuff going on with, like, Black Captain and Cabral. But really, even from very early on in the league, you didn't see the rankings changing all that much.
Yeah, it's been fairly static. We're sort of like the same three people occupying the top slots, the same three people occupying the bottom. And Cabral and Black Captain sort of trading off whoever gets to be in the green for this week.
Well, to be honest, it's been mostly Black Captain. I think if Cabral was in the green, it was only, like, for the first week or so. But since then, I mean, it's been basically all Black Captain all the time, especially since he beat Cabral. It's put him in very much the main contention point for success in this division. But hey, anything can happen, can't it? And I'd love to get started.
Yeah, it is true. Black Captain is definitely the person who's coming into Week 6 with everything to lose, with Cabral coming into it with everything to gain.
That is true. That having been said, though, I mean, Cabral has kind of a mountain to climb having to fight Scoots this week. Whereas our first match, Black Captain, coach of the Martian Mantines, versus Aegislashers, coach of the Primarina-H, was, I would not say necessarily locked up, but I would say quite heavily Black Captain favored.
Yeah, Aegislashers, being new to the Double Dip draft, has definitely, she's shown some, like, prowess understanding of Pokemon, but definitely, like, just on a different level than people that are, like, ranked above her.
It's one thing to have that sort of understanding, like, competitive background, to be like, oh, haha, like, Landorus is good, and to kind of be like, okay, I understand what OU is, I know what Smogon is. That by itself is usually enough to put you ahead of, like, most other casual players, but then when you step into Draft League, it becomes way harder, and it requires, like, such an upfront, not just time investment, but also, like, brain investment. You need to do a lot of studying, a lot of practice, and really it's the kind of thing where Pokemon is just so vast and dense with esoteric and unintuitive mechanics that you kind of just have to play it for a long time to really get your head around everything. I would say Black Captain, especially coming into this match at 3-2 as opposed to Aegislashers' 0-5, and also having at least one, I think even 2 seasons of experience before this point. Black Captain's got all the things in his toolbox, in theory, to carry him to victory, and Aegislashers is right now climbing a mountain.
Yeah, it's definitely leaning much more one way than it is the other. But that's not to say that like Aelin can be written off immediately, because like I feel step one of the whole like learning process is having a good draft to begin with. And Aelin just has a good draft already.
She does. Her draft is really, really strong. Breloom, Garchomp, even Primarina has been remarkably good. Doublade always a value pick. So she's always, had a solid team. But Black Captain also no slouch. Skarmory, Mega Gallade, Galvantula, Latios, Jesus. Even Weezing. Really genuinely quite strong in general. So, I would say that I would expect Black Captain to maintain his reign as the leader of the bottom of the pack, in a sense, kind of below that echelon of Bananas, Claire, and Scoots. Black Captain has kind of just been holding it down there, and him fighting Aelin this week, I would expect not to change.
Yeah, let's hop into the match here. And, as has been wont to happen, Captain leading with one of his sticky webbers.
Yeah, Galvantula lead is pretty standard. It's also very interesting. I've just realized that was a Scarf sticky web.
Yeah, this Scarf sticky web, and also like this Doublade.
It's
ain't
not a
Doublade.
Doublade.
Yeah, and Captain could have seen that after the first turn, because obviously Doublade is not going to use
flamethrower
or even have flamethrower.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame him for not picking up on that, because I also didn't. When I was watching this, I was like, damn, I didn't know Doublade Flamethrower could do that much damage.
Yeah, it is wild. I love just, like, leading with Zoroark, because, like, nothing has been shown yet. There's, like, no way to, like, quote-unquote, like, having figured it out yet.
Yeah, right.
So that's definitely when Zoroark is, like, at the strongest.
Yeah. Also, to unpack a couple of things that have kind of been flying by us while we've been talking, this Latios has revealed Choice Scarf, assuming Pidgeot is max speed, and also, the Weezing was running Thunder, which actually does clinch a 2-hit KO on Mega Pidgeot, and can't miss because of its No Guard, which also affects incoming moves, not just outgoing moves. As opposed to Thunderbolt, which would not clinch the 2-hit KO. So, clever bit of team building from Black Captain, I like that.
Yeah, aside from that, like, these two just have kind of been, like, throwing out blows, like, left and right.
Yeah, I kind of love me a Slobber Knocker. There's a lot of slower matches this season, and this one is not one of them.
Yeah, and I feel it's like the slowest part of the match, where this Doublade quickly like comes in and just has like the substitute protects Toxic Stall.
Yeah, it's kind of
does actually end up it does actually end up like killing this Gallade. The only like offensive move it is running is Flash Cannon, which does mean that Skarmory does actually wall it.
That's true.
Kinda.
It does, because it can't be toxic, and Flash Cannon is going to do absolutely nothing for damage. I was just shocked by how little the knockoff was doing, because I know Doublade is quite bulky, but after losing the Eviolite, I mean, I don't know. It wasn't burned,
No, it was not burned, that's true. It's, yeah, I don't know. It's very, very bulky, this thing.
Also, Garchomp presumably reveals its own Scarf again here, outspeeding the Mime despite the web. But actually, at this point now, it's really tough for Black Captain to deal with Primarina. That Moonblast crit sure didn't help, but,
Yeah, it is a case of, like, in theory, Latios can deal with both if it has something like Thunderbolts.
Yeah, but since it's already
the main
revealed
thing
its Scarf.
Yeah, like, it can switch attacks, and also, like, if it does use Thunderbolt and Garchomp comes in, then you're back at square one and have to switch out.
And if you use Draco Meteor and Primarina comes in, that's another immunity. I mean, your best bet would be locking into, like, Psychic if you have it, but I'm assuming that, given that he didn't click it, he probably didn't.
Yeah, I feel the only out here at the end for Black Captain would have been clicking Ice Beam and just praying to whatever deity you decide to believe in get the freeze, because you always kill the Garchomp, that's not a problem.
Yeah. And then
it is just that this Primarina needed to die.
That's true. But, I mean, genuinely, what was this? Oh, it was Chesto, it wasn't even Lefty. So,
yeah,
I mean, you could have
Chesto.
eventually made that progress if you got the... if you got the lucky freeze. I have done that once in OU myself before, where I was like in an endgame against Victini with I think Kyurem, and I was Scarf Kyurem into Ice Beam, or I think it was even Freeze Dry, and it was just like, oh well, I guess I lose, and I clicked Freeze Dry, and then Victini remained frozen for like 6 turns, and I just like very slowly died, and I won, and I was just like, dude, holy cow. But it does happen if you try, a million times. It may happen. So, I don't know. It's like identifying your win con and throwing up your hands and saying, like, all right, let's see if maybe, luck is a lady tonight or not.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Did you catch this match live or not?
I think I did, yeah.
Do you know like how fast they were like making their moves?
Pretty fast.
Yeah, that's definitely the feeling that I was having like just watching, because I didn't catch it live. I was busy with other things at the time, didn't see the notification.
Yeah, and I mean,
But
honestly, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel like both of them were just sort of like clicking moves without too much like calcing or even too much like thought going into it. Not too.
Well, I wouldn't put it like that. I think that there's a rationale. Like, you know, if Aelin gets up to +6 in front of the sleeping Latios, then Mach Punch should kill, and then suddenly Mach Punch, like, what do you even switch in on that? You know, maybe Skarmory can live it from full, but
yeah, Captain definitely put his balls up against a really tough fucking wall, leaving in the Latios to on the Brelam and letting it set up, but it ended up working out. It ended up.
It did, yeah. It could have been worse.
Yeah.
But I feel like I see the logic behind the plays, and really, like, you know, the Scarf Iron Head off Garchomp was coming through much better than it had in previous weeks. Resto Chesto was quite good for Primarina against the Mystical Fire. Zoroark actually put in insane work, and Mega Pidgeot managed to hang in front of Weezing with the chip that it got ahead of time. So Aelin just kind of did everything just right enough to get through there, and Black Captain did everything just wrong enough to let it slip through his fingers.
Yeah, and that, you know, from Cat's perspective, that sucks a lot, because this puts them at 3-3 this week.
Yeah.
Which means that if Cabral wins this match this week, then they're tied again.
That is true, which is very unlikely because he's fighting Scoots, but, you know, we'll get there when we get there. Yeah. Either way, though, that is a very big dub for Aelin, taking that from Black Captain. I mean, you know, she was the only player at this point. Well, I guess not the only player, but, you know, she was a player at this point in the league who had no wins going into week 6 and, you know, was kind of in danger of like, oh no, am I going to go like an 0-7 season? But getting that one win, that leaves, in this division at least, only Milo with no wins.
Yeah, and speaking of Milo, this week he faces Milo of the Canadian Cottonees faces off against Skittles of the Crystal Cresselias.
Yes, Milo, so they have a very interesting approach to the game, which, you know, again, we like to tell this anecdote a lot. I apologize for the repetition of it, but Milo was the first draft pick of the whole entire league, and the very first Pokemon that got drafted in Double Dip Season 6 was Milo's Jumpluff, which is a Tier 4. And they play like a real Maverick, you know, a lot of the Doug Trio, like Entrainment Durant, you know, Eject Button stuff. We saw, like, Contrary Shell Smash Shuckle. Like, there's a lot of interesting stuff that Milo has brought, and their approach seems to just be, like, I just want to see what happens, like, do the goofy, you know? And this is really the unstoppable force meets an immovable object, because on the other side of that, we have Skittles, who is goofy by default. In fact, you know, assigned goofy at drafts, given how it is monotype water.
Agad.
Yeah, Agad. So Skittles is Agad. And you know, the mono water draft has seen some success. Skittles coming off of his own win versus, I believe it was Aelin last week. Bringing some glory to the mono water team, and I guess we'll be seeing how that pans out versus Milo. What happens, Aurora, when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object?
Well, there is actually a good video about that, which says that they will just pass through one another.
That is fascinating. I'm interested in that. That did so much damage, by the way. It's abandoned.
Yeah, this fucking PodChamp is. I love PodChamp, by the way. That's the best. Like, I think that's one of the best nicknames for all the Pokemon.
Yeah, I love PodChamp. I think that's really funny. I actually, Milo has a really funny one in this too, which is the Yuxie's name, which I don't know if it's come out yet, but you'll see it shortly, presumably.
Yeah, he did. They did forget to nickname the Shuckle, which is a shame.
Yeah, that is honestly very embarrassing. But you know, hey. It happens.
Like if there's one Pokemon that has to have a nickname, it has to be Shuckle. Come on.
I also appreciate old reliable toxic Gastrodon finally getting some use out of its semi-stall. Up until the point where it dies to Energy Ball. You know?
Yeah, that's what that's about.
But it's nice to have counter terrain. I mean, Psychic Terrain versus Misty Terrain. The Misty Terrain you're not benefiting that much, but yoinking that expanding force away, still nice to do.
Yeah, also like puts things back like on your terms rather than you know, Milo's terms.
Right. Jump left slides in. Yeah, and then seed bomb. So physical jump left kind of cool.
Yeah, this thing learned sword stance. Did you know that?
I did not know that. That's hype.
It's such like a dumb Pokemon. I was actually like thinking about it like before we started drafting. I was like thinking like, yeah, like Jumpluff looks like a decent like low tier pick. I might look into that. And it gets sniped first.
Turn 1. It was so good. I love to see, you know, Jumpluff getting a little bit of love. Also, there's a Yuxie, Uxie.
Lost in a Walmart.
I don't know. Very good name.
Yeah.
There was also, I kind of wanted to touch on, if you don't mind real quick before we get way too far past it, the switch into Ampharos on the Golisopod first impression was, I think, a bit questionable. That's
first impression is a priority move, which does mean that the psychic terrain from
Indeedee would have...
I forget what the little... Indeedee, that's a little gremlin.
Would have prevented from doing it. I think my best guess is that Milo switched in to get the, I don't know, predicting like a knockoff, and didn't want to, you know, because you take less damage with the Mega Stone, but ultimately Skittles just popped that thing to incredibly low HP.
Yeah, so it immediately like had to skedaddle out there, just was like dying as well.
I'm actually going to back this up a little bit, because there's a lot of stuff going on that we kind of walked right through.
Yeah, Ludicolo versus the Yuxie. It starts a little like tug of war, which is hilarious because we have Rain Dance and Sunny Day happen on this same turn here.
Yep, double manual weather, but the slower one gets to keep it, so Sunny Day stays up.
Yeah, and they're also just like they're both also using Giga Drain and like
that's true.
Before, which is like this is so hilarious. Like this is just like almost the same Pokemon, just like going off against itself. It's hilarious.
It is very funny, but unfortunately, Skittles does not realize the error of his ways, allowing Sun to stay up and losing his Rain Setter, because suddenly Mothra is in front of a bunch of water types, and it is actually running again full commitment to the bit. Quiver Dance Solar Beam.
Yeah, I'm sure we've mentioned before that, you know, like a full water team is obviously going to have its problems.
Yeah,
but a full water team in Sun is just kind of sad to look at.
Yeah, it's Skittles really did not have the right division for this team to flourish.
Oh no, not at all.
Too much weather, too much sun. You know, he's gonna fight Cabral next week, and Cabral has a Sunsetter too, and yeah,
it's
not pretty.
It's rough.
I think maybe Skittles could have done a little bit better if he had brought Politoed, and maybe could have like auto removed the sun. But it's still just so impressive if you can't play around it.
Yeah, put up like a bit more like pressure to keep his weather going rather than let Milo get away with theirs. But you know, ultimately, like every week is gonna be an uphill battle for Skittles. And, yeah, like he doesn't necessarily have a weather team, so I understand why he doesn't do it.
Right.
But it is a case of like, if the opponent does use their weather, in this case Milo with Sun, it is just so much worse for you.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, it's not like Sunny Day was something that was necessarily going to come, right? Like that's kind of, you know, very innovative tech from Milo, identifying that counter weather and just saying, yeah, I'll do it, why not, you know? And getting generously rewarded with not just his first win, but in fact a 5-0 over Skittles.
Yeah, coming to think of it, that Jumpluff was actually doing like a lot of damage even with U-turn. I think it might have been banded.
You think so?
It might have been. I don't think we see.
I guess it used Seed Bomb once and then U-turn once, so maybe it was banded.
Yeah.
I guess Chlorophyll like banded Seed Bomb. Like, what do you do about that?
Yeah, I was about to say, like that's all you need against Skittles.
Yeah, true. But with that, Milo and Aelin both clinching their first win this week. That means there are no players at 0 wins in this division, making it the first and only division as of week 6 to be that way. So, awesome! Let's go Diamond.
Yeah. And I guess it always feels good, you know, like when you get that first win, like in a draft season.
Yeah, it's really dope. I mean, and again, it's really common, genuinely, to like come in and just take a bunch of L's and then end up with like 1 or 2 or maybe even 0 wins. And when I first played draft way back in the day, I went, I think, like 0-12 and then like dropped out. So I have been on the receiving end of like a really tough season like
Yeah.
that. But when you get your first, it's my God.
It's why we're still here.
I remember my first
If
draft
Spood
win.
and I were worse at this game, we would not be here.
That is true. If I got like beaten down forever just like that, it would suck. But once you like taste that little bit, you're just like, oh, okay. You know, I don't know. It's strong. It keeps me coming back. And hey, you want to know who came back? Was Claire from SSL. A bit of an abstract look. Claire, coach of the Maryland Manectrics, versus Bananas of the Don't Drop That Dedennes. So this, again, really exciting match. The story of Bananas this season has been him absolutely crushing everybody that he fought in a row. And his differential, I mean, it was better even than IDM's, right? He is really, really strong. The only caveat to that, he's fought Black Captain, he's fought Cabral, both good players, both players that he triumphed over. And he fought the bottom three players in this division being, Aelin, Skittles, and Milo. And he looked great versus everybody. But what everyone is interested in seeing is how Bananas does versus the other two really good players in his division, being Claire and Scoots, who are his final 2 weeks. Going into this, Claire does have a loss, which Bananas doesn't. Claire has already fought Scoots and incurred a loss against him, and Bananas has yet to fight either one. So it's really exciting to see how does Bananas do against Claire and Scoots, and we're finally at a point where we get to see it.
Yeah, these last couple of weeks, it really depends on like what division you're looking at to see like how impactful like it truly is. But for this one, it's mostly the top three sort of like shuffling amongst each other, and now they're finally getting to face off against one another.
Yeah, and
that's
same
really
deal for the
exciting.
bottom three. Like, Aelin, Skittles, and Milo getting a chance to play against each other is only something that's happening now at the very end of the season.
Yeah, they had it like rough up until now, and finally get a bit of like relief, so they get to like, fight people that are
A little
more
closer to where
amongst
they're
themselves.
at. Yeah. And obviously, we would have had no way of knowing like how well Bananas was going to do this season before going into it. We knew he was going to be good, but wow, I mean, he's really impressed. But
He's definitely proven himself to be somebody to watch, not just for like good gameplay, but fun gameplay, I'd say.
And knowing at this point, Claire, Bananas, and Scoots already as of week 5 even confirmed for playoffs. It's an understood thing that all three of them are going to advance. So getting to see them play against each other, it's really important now for them. Like, how deep is their playoffs run going to look? A lot of that is going to be informed by what is their seed coming out of this division. So even though, like, maybe in a sense it's not that important because both of them will advance to playoffs anyway, at this point, this deep into the season, if you know you're going on, now you're looking at the playoffs bracket and thinking, okay, who do I want to play? Who do I not want to play? How does my seed get affected by this fight? If I lose to Claire, do I drop out of number 1? Which, it's important stuff. And especially with Scoots right after, you don't want to incur your loss now. You kind of want to see if you can carry that momentum all the way to the end of the season and maybe even clinch out that bye through round 1 of playoffs altogether.
Yeah, I actually feel it makes this season like a bit more interesting than seasons previous, because like if you were confirmed for playoffs, even if you like slacked off completely, like you would still just be like put in the same slot of 8 people. You would just have to fight somebody like on a higher seed in a different division. But now there's not just like getting to quote unquote fight somebody easier. That's not wholly what's happening, but in theory,
right?
It's like that bye, like if like, even because Bananas and Claire are both like setting really good right now, but none of them are confirmed for the bye yet.
That's true.
So like that's really, still like a very like that's something we're fighting for.
It's a mouth-watering thing. I mean, I think the only person who's gotten their bye guaranteed at week 5 in the whole entire league is like Vincent, and everyone else, including IDM, could still lose their bye. Actually, no, there's 2 byes in Plat. So IDM, even if he falls out of 1, I don't think he can fall to 3. So I think IDM's bye is confirmed as well, but definitely not the case in Diamond, and I'm very interested in seeing how that pans out. And I mean, looking at this team off rip, I don't know if we've seen Embor yet. Embor looks like it can kind of struggle a bit against this team. Quagsire looks like a real issue for it and Steelix. And honestly, even Buzzwole, it kind of looks like Quagsire's going to be just really frustrating for Claire to break through. But once she does, as long as Quagsire's down and you've dealt with Skuntank, like Poltegeist can be really good. You know, you have switch-ins to Mega Lopunny with Buzzwole, which is a very rare thing. But then again, Buzzwole loses to Rotom Heat, which then, you know, maybe loses to, like, Diancie. So there's a lot of angles back and forth from Team Preview where, win cons kind of shimmy into place halfway through the game instead of up front.
Yeah, it's like rock, paper, scissors, except there's like 77 extra elements in there.
Right. Classic Pokemon type shit. But if you're ready, I don't want to wait anymore. I'm jumping in.
Let's see what happened here, because this is always going to be a good fight, no matter like which way it goes.
Yep, and immediately, you know, Bananas does not want to test the Diamond Storm, goes into Quag, and does a very small amount of damage to this Poltegeist. Although I think it is somewhat fair to assume that it's just, you know, Quagsire defensive EVs. We might find out if we look at the Burn, the Will-O-Wisp, the Strength Sap. This is a very bulky Poltegeist. It's kind of like Cofagrigus Light.
Yeah, it's and instead of like trying to abuse like some ridiculous defense set, because Poltegeist does not have that, it just reduces like your attack to nothing with Burn and then Strength Sap and then
right.
Yeah,
the Strength Sap still recovers at full even though the opponent's burned, so you're still getting max HP back for your Strength Sap, but you're not getting the Burn like debuff to your health recovery. And also again, you see like Buzzwole just such an issue for Mega Lopunny.
Yeah, it is. But you know, speaking of things that are an issue, like the Quagsire just like comes in and it does get poisoned from the poison jab, which is annoying for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it does show like immediately, like this Buzzwole like just does not really hit this thing that hard.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna have to like nail it with like a superpower or a close combat.
I actually did very much like that counterplay. I think counter plus recover, you know, it forces Claire, even if it doesn't kill her up front, like it forces her to adjust her play a lot.
Yeah, it definitely put like a big dent in there and like
yeah,
kind of forced her.
Poor Skuntank too. I mean, it's kind of now really gimped since it can't beat Poltegeist. It kind of seemed like it was maybe there just to pursuit trap it. Now that's really not worth doing. You just kind of want to try and get the poison jab poisoned.
Yeah, which, you know, Claire got one, so it's only fair that Bananas gets one back.
Very true. Although I'm sure Bananas would have liked that on Poltegeist instead of Diancie. We'll take it.
Yeah, but hey.
Yep. Loses
also
out on some
dodge
potential aftermath ship there, yeah.
Yeah. Also, Head Smash is such nice tech from Claire.
Yeah, not something that I think I would have expected to see, but it makes total sense with Rotom Heat in the mix.
Yeah, and speaking of nice tech.
Speaking of nice tech.
This is a lot of defense.
Yeah, watch this. Holy guacamole. Heavy Slam still does 21, but it's not enough to break sub.
Yeah, that doesn't break substitute, and which actually like very slowly lets Bananas recover with
yeah, with lefties and Leech Seed if it has it.
Yeah.
Moonblast is neutral damage because of fire, resisting fairy. Flare Blitz still does 40 quadruple defense. My God.
I think that does actually show that this Ember is scarfed.
That would actually make sense. Although, I mean, you know, it might just be like a 0-speed Whimsicott.
Yeah.
It's a prankster.
I'll go and check that. But I think that Whimsicott is like basics faster still.
And while you're checking that, the unfortunate blunder that cost Bananas the game here is the death of his Lopunny to Buzzwole. He even says in chat, he kind of laments, he neglected to calc the damage of the return on Buzzwole, just assuming it would kill, and Buzzwole lives with, I think, 4% and kills back with close combat. Which
it's great. It like scoots out of being dead just barely.
Yep, and really from there, Claire just kind of cleans it up. You know, Behem can still be an issue in theory. You know, that Quagsire could have been an issue in theory. But after Lopunny's gone, like, you know, the defensive Poltegeist was going to be really hard to break through. I mean, it's going to be hard to break through even with an alive Lopunny, let's be honest. But Steelix also just really, really defensive to the point that you can't just kind of brainlessly roll your face on the keyboard and, like, you know, kill it in a way that maybe Mega Lopunny can run through a lot of other low tiers. Claire was just very physically bulked up, and unfortunately, it just, you know, the tech options from both sides kind of just ended up edging out Claire.
Yeah, like the biggest thing Bananas could have done to try and get out this Steelix would have been Rotom, because Steelix does not do a whole lot against that.
Right, and you could get burned,
But-
you know, just Will-O-Wisp on the table, suddenly this thing's doing no damage anyway.
Yeah, Will-O-Wisp or just like nuke it with an overheat. But it's just like, Claire obviously is aware of that too and plays if it's safe enough to that she doesn't have to worry about it. And in fact, once Ember gets the head smash on it, a lot of Steelix problems are just gone.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, the head smash into Rotom, killing it is really huge for Claire. You know, Lopunny not killing Buzzwole with return, really huge for Claire. Things just kind of ended up stacking up in Claire's favor, and she is the first player in this division to be able to take a game off of Bananas. And as is the tradition, apparently, for Week 6 of the Diamond Division, Bananas has now had the 0 removed from his record and replaced with a 1, except, you know, as opposed to Aelin and Milo, who are getting their first win, Bananas incurs his first loss, and now everyone in this division, in the Diamond Division, has either won or lost at least one game.
Yeah. I do like the term that you coined at the beginning of this call, which is that this is the friendship division.
This is the friendship division. You know what? Everybody has at least one loss. Everybody has at least one win. Nobody dropped out halfway through. You know, it's been a nice, consistent, wholesome division, and I like Diamond Division. I'll say it. You know, yeah. Pearl is kind of getting the spotlight right now, given how crazy it is. But you know, I love Diamond. I think Diamond's sick.
Diamond's great. Also, I am back with research. Unless Whimsicott is a negative speed in nature, Ember needs a Scarf to outspeed it.
Okay, I mean that makes sense. Yeah, that because Embor's not even fast anyway. You're right. I think I was just
it's
devil's advocate.
Whimsicott is almost twice the base speed.
My God. Well, that is bonkers. You want to go ahead and throw us to our last match?
Yeah. Our last match, which is a big one because it's important for, I feel, both people involved, which is Scootaloo, coach of the Dumblespoods army, and Cabral of the Slinging Aegislashers.
Yeah, story going into this. Scoots... Oh shit, wait, I spoiled it. Oh no! Wait, Scoots hadn't lost yet going into this. Oh no! Whoops, okay, so...
wait to spoil it. Yeah, coming into this, Cabral... Yeah, like I said at the start, Cabral has everything to gain, and with Captain losing his match, it is now up to Cabral to win his, to even the scores and have a shot at playoffs again.
Yeah, because even in the case where Black Captain takes kind of an uncharacteristic loss, Cabral having lost that head-to-head is really huge, but suddenly he does have an opportunity to make up some ground if he can only upset the top seed of the division, in theory. Again, Bananas in practice has been doing better than Scoots. But, you know, based on the seeding, Scoot's best player in this division, in theory, and certainly no slouch when it comes to playing games, as he was 5-0 going into Week 6, and looking just as scary as Bananas, if simply keeping his games a little closer.
Yeah, Scoots has definitely been, you know, putting in the good work, getting the good results. Using, you know, a scary draft, a good one, a very offensive one, actually.
Mm-hmm. He loves Weavile, and it puts in an insane amount of work every single time.
I love Weavile too, it just doesn't have any fucking, like, utility to... So I always, like, end up, like, not picking it.
Sometimes you just have to hit really hard and go really fast. And that's
what I do with that's what I do with my S tiers. I don't need a B tier for that. Or
listen. Weavile's great, and Scoot has gotten a lot of value out of it. He's also managed to make Galarian Articuno look solid, and unfortunately Mega Garchomp, I feel, has not had much of an opportunity to, you know, shine. It's kind of showing why it's a bit weaker than normal Garchomp, which is kind of funny. It hasn't been a bad pick, but it seems like it's a rare bring, and it has not been excelling.
Not only that, it is like a case of, like, this has been the case for a lot of Megas in this season, I feel. What is it, like Mega Blasters, I feel, has gotten to shine the most.
Yeah, I would say so.
That's really it.
Yeah, like
every other Mega has sort of been like struggling on like the power creep, and they just barely miss out. They're just barely not good enough anymore.
It really is crazy. I mean, it's crazy to see like Mega Beedrill hasn't had any real action. Mega Absol hasn't gotten to do a whole lot. You know, Mega Garchomp hasn't been able to do a whole lot.
Yeah, there's just been like so much like new stuff that's come out that just like walls it too easily, or like new items that's help against it too well.
Yep.
And it just falls too short. Like the stats that Megas have, they're good, without a doubt. what if only you could have an item with them?
Yeah, it really is. Mega Rayquaza would be quite good in this format, but the obvious problem just being that the Mega Stone is the issue. So
yeah,
interesting
also,
though to see the dynamic at this, in this matchup specifically. I mean, Garchomp actually is pretty threatening. I mean, Weezing can resist both stabs, but is not going to handle a Swords Dance Iron Head. Goodra is quite especially tanky, but hey, Swords Dance Outrage is going to eat right through it. It's bulky enough to live an Ice Punch from Urshifu. It's really not too It's really not too scared or worried about like coverage off of Pelipper, because Pelipper can Ice Beam and it's pretty defensive. But you could have like a Stone Edge coverage, or even just again an Outrage in the back for it, depending on whether or not Weezing is still alive. But obviously, Pilliswine's Ice Shard is kind of a big equalizer for it.
Yeah. Also, not to reveal like any bias here or anything, but how many man-hours did you put into this matchup?
I put a lot of time into this. So I helped Cabral quite a bit with his prep for this week. He already, even before Black Captain vs. Aelin happened, because it was actually the very last match of the week, so this one was played first. Cabral knew if he was going to have any shot at making it into playoffs, he had to find an upset over Claire or Scoots, and unfortunately failed to clinch that against Claire last week. So he threw absolutely everything at the wall to try and, be the first one to topple Scoots, and he did manage to do it. So why don't we find out how?
Yeah, it is a very good match still.
I will say from Team Preview, the only other thing to note is Scoots has pretty bad hazard control, having his only defogger in this game being Florges and having no spinners. So these Toxic Spikes are here to stay. And also, his only really good defensive answer to Urshifu is Milotic, which is not here. So he has to be pretty confident.
Speaking of weird things, by the way, where's the Toxic Spikes? Where'd they go?
I don't know. There's sometimes like a graphical thing. They'll disappear on occasion.
Showdown's been having like a bit of an issue for that.
Yeah. But you see there, he's gotten the 2 layers up, and now this thing is toxic. So even if it defogs them away, at the very least, he's gotten the toxic on one of the 3 eligible participants. So at least they've done something, especially with this thing being as annoyingly bulky as it is.
Yeah, but it's not like this thing is going to be like defog and aromatherapy, because at that point, like, this thing is just so passive.
Yeah, it just can't do
that it
anything.
just invites like anything to like come set up and clean house.
Right. And God, that's an assault. That's Goodra taking 7% from a psychic. Ugh.
Yeah, assault was like just for reference, Goodra's base special defense is 150.
Yeah.
Which then gets multiplied by 1.5 because of the assault fist.
It's pretty ridiculous. That pursuit actually does do quite a lot of damage, and Scoots needs all the shit we can get on that Goodra.
Yeah, it really shows like which side of that thing is like the more fail side. And here we do like see that this Leafeon, it is not here to like outright kill anything.
Yeah, this Leafeon
it's just
is
going to like sit here and stall shit out. Yeah,
it sends wishes to other things. It gets up, Leech Seed is a great switch into Metang. It takes really no damage from anything Metang can do. Also, Synthesis getting gimped by the rain is funny.
Yeah. Also, I do actually like, because Cabral does not have like the heavy-duty boots and anything, but like wish bashing into Pokemon basically serves the same purpose.
Yeah, he's still effectively, the hazards are much better for Cabral. Also, here he reveals Scarf, because this Articuno was also Scarf, and yet Urshifu has a few base points of speed faster.
Yeah, Urshifu is a very ridiculous Pokemon.
Yeah, Urshifu is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pelipper comes right in on this. And this thing being toxic, again, it's always going to be on a timer, even if it gets a ridiculous setup going.
Yeah, and Pelipper kind of showing like just how like bulky it is. Like this Rock Slide 50% was from something super effective. Yeah, it's still here. It doesn't care all that much.
So the remainder of Scoots' Pokemon, or at least Metang and Electros are immune to the Toxic Spikes for different reasons, but Weavile certainly is not. Now Weavile is known to run boots, but Scoots has a different love in his heart for the Choice Band.
Yeah, Scoots, it's kind of a man after my own heart, because I do also love just big attack damage.
Yeah. This U-turn is pretty smart to get in, just like get this thing in range, and also predicts the Giga Drain correctly and gets the Sab Sipper. Goes for Acid
Yeah.
Spray, gets knocked and dies, but, this thing has already more than served its purpose at this point in the match.
Yeah.
Now, what Cabral could have done here, for more consistency, is he could have gone into Pelipper, because it was still, above 25, so the rain would have gone up, and then you would have had Surging Strikes insta-killing both of these remaining Pokemon with no fear. However, Surging Strikes just barely does not kill this, and a Zen Headbutt puts it just barely in range of a high roll, choice-banded Ice Shard from Weavile, which again, is what it is.
And here, if we do look at like the Pokemon that we have remaining on Cabral's side, none of them appreciate an Ice Shard like that.
That's true. Although on the opposite end of things, this thing has already revealed that it has Protect, and this thing does have Protect. Although it didn't show it, you can kind of infer it anyway from the Wish.
Yeah, Wish Protect is kind of standard, especially like in combination with Leech Seed. You definitely want Protect on that.
Yeah. So in theory, Cabral can, get 4 turns of this plus 2 additional turns minimum of Protect in front of the Ice Shard. And this thing is, coming in at 75, and it's already Toxic, and it's already going to have to spend a turn killing this if it does get the high roll.
Yeah, and even then, Cabral could have stalled for more time by going into Leafeon, hitting Protect, swapping out to the Pelipper, having an eye, going back into Leafeon, and hitting Protect again.
That's true, yeah. And same deal for Weezing, go into Weezing, Protect, go into something else, let it die, go back into Weezing, Protect again. So
Cabral had a lot of Toxic always would have stolen out in the end.
It would have certainly been less scary for Cabral if he'd gotten that Rain up, albeit at the cost of a little bit of differential, presumably. But he really could have just gotten in here and clicked, Surging Strikes in the Rain like 3 times and won for sure. But hey, he was still probably almost certainly going to win unless he really bungled the end game there versus the Banded Ice Shard. So good on him for doing that.
Yeah, good race. I'm actually looking at one thing here.
Yeah.
A Banded Ice Shard from Weavile against a max HP, max defense Leafeon actually only does 36 to 43.
That is interesting. So Leafeon probably even lived one. Okay, yeah, then...
Yeah.
Wow. Well, shoot, maybe it was easier for Cabral than we would have thought. I'm sure he had the, because Cabral took a lot of time with this game, too. He was, the turns were much slower than, Black Captain versus Aelin ended up being. He did quite a lot of calcing, and I'm sure at the end game, I mean, even me, when I was watching it, I was kind of so, crouched over and being like, whoa, okay, this is really, really close, he's about to do it. I was running my own calcs. I was like, does Banded Ice Shard kill? Oh, no, it can! So, I'm sure he was looking at the calcs, and I'm sure Scoots was, too. Going into that, at the very end. So, Cabral doing the impossible, imparting Scoots' first loss. And so this week, we got 2 players' first wins, 2 players' first losses. So it was really huge for Diamond. Just a lot of stuff happening all over the place, and the rankings have been shaken up just a tad because of it. Would you like to take the top 4? I'll take the bottom.
Yes, we have one of the most satisfyingly symmetrical records ever, by the way, which I love this division. It's so great. Starting at the top, we still have Bananas up there at 5-1 at plus 22 differential, which, he did take that loss this week, but he's been winning so convincingly every week that it is the differentials doesn't even show that much. Dumblespoods Army, Scoots at 5-1 as well at plus 14. Tied with Claire, also at 5-1 at plus 14. With the tiebreaker going to...
Scoots having beaten Claire already.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. And then at the bottom of the green section, we have Cabral now, taking over Black Captain just barely by differential at 3 plus 3.
A kind of bonkers week for Cabral, to be honest, and a very tragic week for Black Captain. Because now, leading up the red for the first time since I think week 2 or something, we've got Black Captain of the Martian Mantines at a 3-3 and plus 1 differential. In 6th, we've got Milo of the Canadian Cottonees at a 1-5 minus 15. Aelin of the Primarina-H moving up into 7th over Skittles with a 1-5 and minus 19, and Skittles bringing up the rear once again. Cresselias at a 1-5 minus 20 differential.
Yeah, it's actually funny that the Primarinas end up just clinching barely over Skittles, because Skittles does have the head-to-head, but the Primarinas have 1 differential better.
That's true. So she's just barely hanging on. But hey, like, very interesting stuff from the Diamond Division. I mean, it was kind of a massacre this week. And it looks very interesting because now, I mean, if you'd asked me last week, and I may have even said as much on the recap if you go back and watch it, if you'd asked me last week who I thought was going to advance, I would have told you I'm almost positive Black Captain goes on. Now, it's way more likely that Cabral advances, despite the head-to-head.
It is definitely. We actually have... Because there's a lot of shuffling that can still happen here. Because all the people that are 5-1, this can end up in pretty much any order.
That is true. Despite Bananas having a ridiculous amount of differential over his opponents, he does have to fight Scoots who's right underneath him, and so any differential incurred one way is also negatively incurred the other way. Meaning that, like, let's say Scoots beats Bananas like 3-0, right? Pretty standard. You'd expect a change of 3 differential, but in practice, you're really getting a change of 6 because Scoots goes up by 3, up to 17. Bananas goes down by 3 to plus 19. But obviously also incurs the loss. So Scoots, you know, jumps above him in that win-loss if he wins, no matter what. So I guess to rephrase, the differential doesn't necessarily matter between Bananas and Scoots for their own placements. It's more so important for Claire's placement, who, since she's not fighting either of them, she's already gotten her matches with both of them out of the way. She's actually poised to sneak above them if, let's say, Scoots beats Bananas, gets up to, like, I don't know, a plus 17 or something. If Claire outperforms Scoots in his match against Bananas with her upcoming match against, I believe, Black Captain, then she will actually take the #1 spot in the whole division, and she'll snipe the bye right at the end.
Yeah, which, you know, like, story-wise, that would be incredible. On the flip side, if Bananas wins the fights against Scoots, he's in first.
Yeah.
His differential is so much higher than everybody else that even if Claire wins 6-0, Bananas is still above her.
Yeah. I mean, Scoots really is not going to stay second, essentially, no matter what happens here. I guess unless him and Claire both lose, the interesting thing is, like, since they're dead even tied, and right now he only has the edge on their head-to-head, but in theory, again, this is all in theory, anything could happen. You know, Scoots just lost to Cabral. In theory, Scoots should beat Bananas, and Claire should beat Martian Mantines. So Claire, you know, could very realistically grab the top spot if she just beats Black Captain by at least 1 point more than Scoots beats Bananas, assuming that Scoots can do it at all. But obviously, if Scoots loses to Bananas, then, you know, Bananas maintains that bye completely uncontested.
Yeah, the only way Scoots can guarantee himself playoffs is if he beats Bananas 6-0.
Yeah. Well, the bye. He's already in playoff. All three of them.
Yeah, I mean the bye.
Right. Because not even, you know, it's not even a matter of whether or not the 3 of these players will advance to playoffs. All 3 of them mathematically certain to advance to playoffs. Also mathematically certain to advance as the top 3 in the division. Because the next highest being Cabral at 3-3. You know, if he, you know, again, best case scenario gets a 6-0 this week, that only puts him at 4-3. All of them already have 5 wins, so it's impossible for any of them to go below 3rd.
Yeah. So it is definitely like, you know, any order can still come out of those 3. So, like, none of them can get complacent quite yet.
Yeah, you actually arguably have to try harder this week than you've ever had to try before. Because as you go into playoffs, you know, when you're playing for that, and I think we may have mentioned this even earlier a little bit when we were talking about the replays, when you're going into playoffs and you already know you're a lock, now you have to, you know, analyze, like, okay, do I want to, like, am I capable of making the deep run, going all the way to grand finals, all the way to top 4 even? How do I get there? And suddenly that bye is a lot more valuable. The even just the ranking of where you land is so much more powerful. You know, it's the difference between, you know, fighting, I don't know, Chemith or Firebolt, right, in theory. Now, obviously, that's, like, nothing is confirmed. You know, Chemith could still get the bye, Firebolt could still completely fall out, but you really want your number to be bigger. You do not want it to go lower. So even the difference between 2nd and 3rd, while it's not as seismic of a difference as going on to playoffs at all, it's still something you want to consider for the long haul and say, like, there is still so much value to be extracted from this last week, even though I know I can't fall below third. How do I get that bye? If I can't get that bye, how do I get a favorable seed?
Definitely. And we do have like one more thing to quickly like touch on here, because we do have Cabral and captain almost tied, and both vying for that last open slot to playoffs.
Yes. It's really interesting because, again, Black Captain was sitting very comfortably in 4th place for really, again, the majority of this whole season. He was really cruising in that spot, especially after beating Cabral. It was basically his. And unfortunately for him, just catastrophic Week 6 has now put him in 5th with a pretty tough final week's match against Claire. Whereas, and this is with all due respect to Skittles, my favorite person on Earth, Cabral versus Skittles, especially given the matchup that Cabral has a very competent and powerful Sun team, and we already saw what a Sun team in Microcosm can do with just a Heat Rock Yuxie and a Chlorophyll Jumpluff. Imagine what that is with Torkoal and Venusaur, or Torkoal and Leafeon, you know? I think it is basically a shoo-in for Cabral to beat Skittles at this point, and so the only way for Black Captain in that scenario to advance over Cabral, even with the advantage of having the head-to-head, is to win his match by a factor of 2 more than Black Captain wins his match, or excuse me, then Cabral wins his match against Scoots, which means not only does he have to beat Claire, which is already very difficult, he needs to very convincingly beat Claire and hope that Cabral does less than a 5-0 to Skittles.
Yeah, it's an unenviable position for sure, but it's possible.
It is possible. And you know what? With the right prep, like, maybe Skittles' Banded Golisopod takes one too many Pokemon with first impression, and suddenly, you know, Martian Mantines has an incredibly good sweep against Claire. Suddenly, yeah, Cabral still falls out. But now, I mean, Cabral's so hungry for it, given just the opportunity of a lifetime to steal this from Black Captain, who really doesn't want to lose it.
Yeah.
Really, the only other storylines to talk about in this division, as far as I can tell, are the bottom 3 can still shift up and down. You know, Milo has a relatively large advantage in terms of differential over the other 2 players down here, but since they're all dead even in terms of win-loss, and again, we're uncharitably assuming that Skittles will likely lose given the matchup that he's about to have, you know, it's Aelin versus Milo for 6th place, if it's a pride thing and it's something that matters to you.
Yeah, you know, one of them definitely like picking up their 2nd win next week.
Yeah,
that'll be like up to them, like who does it, and yeah, like whoever just like wins it will have just like the 1 extra win over the other.
Right,
so
and again,
overtake.
If it's like a pride thing, you know, in the worst case scenario, like Black Captain and Cabral cannot fall below 5th, right? For the same reason they can't go into 3rd or higher. You know, there's 2 matches of wins separating them on both sides, so they're stuck at 4th and 5th no matter what happens.
Yeah, it's like all the people that share a record at the moment can only shift amongst themselves, not
right. So
above their little clique that they've made for themselves.
It is a mathematical certainty that 1, 2, and 3 will be in some order Bananas, Scoots, and Claire. 4 and 5 will always be Cabral and Black Captain in some order, and 6, 7, and 8 will always be Milo, Skittles, and Aelin in some order.
Yes, it is just up to them how.
Right. And I think really that is about all she wrote. I don't know. I mean, I'm really just kind of throwing my hands up and saying at this point, I don't know who's starring in the companion videos. You can count on Cabral being in the Platinum recap, and you can always count on me being in the Pearl one, baby. But aside from that, it gets a little murky with the co-hosts. So
yeah. Anyway, thanks for having me here. By the way, I think I'm gonna like go back on the run now.
Yeah, sure.
I think I see Cabral approaching in the distance. So
yeah, pack up your bindle. I'll give you a cover story. You get out of here. I'll take the bullet. Thank you for joining me again. Please check out the companion videos to this, especially the Pearl Division recap. If you love math and being confused and stressed out, that is where you should go. Or the Platinum Division if you're interested in the comeback story of a lifetime, baby. Hopefully. That's going to be very embarrassing next week if I lose to Jason. But hey, there's only one way to find out. So please check out the companion videos. Thank you, Aurora, for joining me. And as always, I will see you next week.
Bye-bye.